This is Morning Express, time for the newsroom. We're glad you're watching us this morning. And joining us on set, the great panel that says it as it is. We have, why are you laughing? You are a great
Thank you.
people. Clay Muganda, Martin Mutua, Patrick Gadara, Santeni Sana, Pastor James. By the way, so one of our viewers this morning just asked, has James ever thought of being a pastor? And just, you know how things just fall into place. The next intro we are reading is about silent prayers and pastors. I mean, isn't that a message, a sign from above? Huh?
It's a message.
Why do you think people would think he's going to be a pastor? Do you sense
can we get into actually? Please. Can we spare the viewers? Yes.
It is well, Pastor James. Sounds good. Yeah? Imagine that. Command your morning before the show begins.
Sophia has come with a lot of...
Yeah? In fact, he'd use this desk, the Morning Express desk. Since we know we're just going to come with the news, he comes early.
Command your morning.
Yes. So we'll have remix over here, command your morning. Then
Command your morning.
Gentlemen, good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Good to see you too, Pastor James.
Yeah, I'm on his case this morning. But big story, referendum. Whilst I was away, I was seeing you all discussing and breaking down, the stories that are unfolding. And the signatures, 5 million, they say they're going to collect. And of course, conversations about respecting me, respecting you, and demanding the same. Clay, will begin with you. How is this story going to end?
I have no idea how it's going to end, but what I find odd is when Mr. Kenyatta goes to the public to demand respect. I think he should be respected, yes, but he should not ask for it.
Yeah.
I mean, respect is earned, and so far, I think these guys, this is just politics, because I want to believe that when Mr. Kenyatta was also in the opposition, whatever is happening now, not exactly the same thing that he demanded a referendum. But I think this is exactly what he also did, or what he could have done also. I mean, they're politicians, and that's what they're doing, actually, insulting our sensibilities left, right, and center. So I don't think that what is happening, that it's something so out of the way. But at the same time, I think that if you remember those days when the opposition just came in, it was the same thing, that everything was being blamed on the opposition, and I find that quite odd, that actually, I mean, such digital and urbane president that we have now could actually go the same way also.
Martin?
Well, I think for me, Uhuru Kenyatta and team are just entering squarely where the opposition wants them. You each other, every other day, you're kept busy, you keep reacting to what they're saying, you keep reacting to their moves, which is totally what they should be doing. It's the total contrast of the situation. We gave them free advice here the last time we were here, that concentrate on what mandate that you are given by Kenyans to do. Don't start these brickbats with the opposition. They will enjoy it. That is this kind of circus and drama they're fully enjoying. And you are kept busy here, you forget what you're supposed to do, and time is moving on. You'll be kept on busy throughout until 2017. So up to 2017, what will you look back and tell Kenyans you've been doing, except just hitting each other back and forth? So I think the gentlemen at the White House, I mean, at the House on the Hill, should concentrate on doing what they're supposed to do. Chart your agenda and stay on that course, and don't get out of that course, because once you start back and forth, they will always pull you to their end. So
this amendment, Patrick, as you bring your contribution to this, Kiharu MP comes up with a brilliant idea. I don't know, from Saturn, something, and says that the losing team, in this referendum should pay the cost of that referendum. So one, I want to understand if we have people who understand the level of democracy and the constitution we have, the Bill of Rights, and then we just have to play politics with that, because it's actually just the continuation of playing politics.
Well, I mean, they've always played politics with this thing we call democracy. And the fact is, even with the call for referendum, there is not much substance to it. How do you call a referendum when you don't know what you're asking? You know, which is what CORD is saying, is let's have a referendum and then we'll have a committee to decide why we want the referendum. You know, I think one of the problems that, and I keep banging on about it, is this lack of substance. And this, we're not about solving problems, we're about playing politics. You know, when the MP says that the losing side of a referendum should pay for the cost, is in essence, he's trying to put a chill on people's exercise of their rights by telling them that there's going to be a cost when you exercise that right. It's the equivalent of government saying journalists should be, should stand to, or should risk paying 5 million shillings if they publish a wrong story. You know, it's just a way of getting them to keep quiet, of scaring them into silence, and that's what they're trying to do when they propose this sort of thing. But I think more importantly is I find in our coverage as press that there is we don't introduce a substance. We're still letting them dictate what it's about. You know, so we are all covering the politics, but not looking at what are the substantial issues. You know, how would a referendum solve security? What are the questions that need to be asked? You know, I think I find that there's very little media space being dedicated to that.
Yeah, which is what I was going to claim in as far as the media putting the whole issue into perspective, this referendum, vis-a-vis just simply reporting what the politicians are saying. They say this, we publish, we upsound them, but are we putting the whole issue in context and perspective for our viewers? And
this has been a problem, actually. I have to admit, this has been a problem with the Kenyan media. We tend to do a lot of reporting. We tend to do a lot of reporting, and then...
event reporting, to be specific.
Event reporting. Yeah.
So and so said this today.
Yeah, he said, he added, he reiterated, he observed. We tend to do that a lot, actually. And then every weekend, then we bring in the so-called experts, actually, so that we bring two people from the different sides of the divide, from different political parties, and then they argue their case out, and then we tell them, oh, gentlemen, I'm running out of time and all that. But we actually don't get the substance. So people tend to win arguments on air, and then the following week again, another group comes from different sides of the divide, and then it's continuous argument, but we never break it down. Actually, like Gadara points out, this thing about like if you lose, you pay. Actually, this I think referendum is actually in the Constitution. It's within anybody's right to call for a referendum. You see, if you can collect the requisite signatures. And I don't think like what if that side he thinks is going to win loses. Why? Who are they paying? I mean, is it not a part of the expenditure? So I think also those are some of the things that we actually need to break down and disabuse this fact and tell the people like actually it is wrong, you see. But we never do that. We have let actually the politicians set the agenda. And this one has been happening over a period of time. And I think I've always argued that when we put a stop to this, it does not mean that we are fighting the government or fighting the opposition. It actually just shows that we are a strong media. We know what we are doing. But all the time we come across as a very ignorant people. You see?
Yes, Martin, just before you continue, we'll go talk about event reporting and specifically this political reporting. You know, when Tony Blair got in the UK, the journalistic class, if you like, had to have a sit down. You know, because Tony Blair is the one who introduced PR, you know, and handling things from, number 10 in a different way as compared to other prime ministers. And the journalists had to sit down and look at one thing, and every statement that came from this government, that government at the time, are we being intimidated? Is someone lying to us? And they would actually go to the headlines and say, this is a joke. This is nonsense. You know, they reported all those things. They had to sit back and say, we can't just be event reporters anymore and say, well, the president said. Then tomorrow the opposition said. Because that's what we do.
Well, okay, just before I comment on that, because there are all dynamics into it. The issue of that proposed law on referendum, first, that one I think is a stillbirth. It will go nowhere. It should not even be attempted. I hope even when it lands in Parliament, it should be dismissed, because the MP who is trying to do that is just thinking in terms of CORD and Jubilee. But the issue of referendum can be, there are whole lots of issues that anybody can bring to propose to have a referendum on. It's not necessarily on these issues of what CORD and Jubilee are fighting about. There are other many things that anybody can ask for a referendum. And what you're saying is that you want to curtail the freedom for anybody to have that right for a referendum. So I think probably he needs to get back and look at the constitution properly and just give away that idea and look for something else to take to parliament. Secondly, on that issue of event covering and stuff like that, you will realize that we are in transition. We are not we've been coming out from a different kind of system. We are moving to a different kind of system. And there are all lots of challenges in terms of how things are happening, functioning from the county government to the national government and trying to comprehend all these things. In the middle of all these, you have by-elections, you have staff, politicians are fighting back and forth. So I think even for the media, we are also held in the mix. We cannot pretend that we are living in isolation, that we'll start to question this, and then before we do this, something else is happening on the other side. If we had a continuation of the system that we had, it could have been easier for us to be able to chart the way forward. But we have a different system. We are also in a total confusion, and it becomes a bit dicey for the media in terms of what stories to pick and what's supposed to happen. So I think before we settle down, we'll need to give this new system a chance so that we can be able to criticize both county governments and also national government, and also be able to put the whole thing together. So before that happens, I think we'll continue going to have this kind of reporting. But I guess it's a new challenge. It's a challenge.
Resigning the fourth
No,
it's a corner.
No, it's not helpless. I'm saying it's a challenge that we are taking up. And it's a challenge that the media will have to understand as they evolve, because we have various aspects that we need to deal with, because on one side we have a devolution system that is running on one side, and we have this national government on the other. So we have to put all this together. You might question, try to set an agenda on one which will impact negatively on the other, but it's something that the media is, I'm sure, with this kind of system coming up, we're up to the challenge, and we're going to devise ways and means to move forward.
I really don't think that the media's problem started with devolution. They were there before, and it is all about what you said. It's about the approach to reporting and how they understand their role. Some of the pertinent issues, Claire has raised this before, have been how the media is owned, how it is run. So which stories do they go after, which ones do they stay away from, and there are real reasons why they stay away from certain things, and essentially some are self-interest, others are who owns them, political interest and stuff. Why is it that they don't go into the meat of stuff?
Yeah.
You got to again look at the structure of our press and how a lot of the people who in the 90s and the 80s were practicing proper journalism got pushed up into management and stuff, and they're not influencing what goes on in newsrooms. We're not feeding down. So we've got a whole bunch of new journalists who really haven't done or being in the trenches, if you will. They're learning on the job. And sadly, there's a huge gap. They're not really interrogating what goes on behind what they are told, and we end up with the scenario you just painted, where we report what is in front of us, he said, she said, but what the analysis that goes behind it, or even just to remember that actually 20 months ago, this person said something different. We're coming up to the anniversary of Westgate in about a month's time. What do we really know about Westgate? It's been forgotten. It's gone. And stuff.
We'll do a 1 year anniversary. And we'll have all big pictures. 1 year on. Where they and what families are up to. Instead of asking the critical questions. Clay,
when Gadara talks about media ownership, media everywhere is owned by people, by private whatever and all that.
And I don't lose track and go to the media ownership. I just want to...
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. But I want to agree with him, like when it comes to this idea of people who practice journalism in the 90s and all that, they've been pushed up in management, but they've not, it's not that they don't influence much what happens down here. What is happening in the Kenyan media now is actually a culmination of very many years of rot, you see? And then what we end up with now is what I tend to call it instant coffee journalism, where you go to an agricultural college, you pick up somebody from there, you train this person within 2 weeks, and within the next weeks, you see senior political reporter, senior. So we tend not to have people who understand issues in the newsrooms. This has been the problem. So the fewer people, I mean, I gave this example of some time back, that you find like the people who probably covered, the constitutional review in Kenya are already out of the newsroom. But if you look at other places, the person who covered the Watergate is still in the newsroom. You see, he is not even the CEO yet. He's still an associate editor. So here we churn them out very fast. So there's that institutional memory tends to lack. You see, it's not
It disappears very quickly.
Yeah. Because like when we are covering Westgate, and which Gadara keeps on referring to most of the time, we are covering, people keep on saying that the covering was, for me, it was like the English language was murdered all through. Anyway, people keep on talking about how the coverage was not done well. But at the same time, there are people who, we have had such kind of a situation before, the 1998 bombing. Where were these people who covered that to guide the new people who had come into the newsroom? There was nobody. I never saw an analysis of somebody who said like, oh, can you give us can you compare this and to what happened in 1998? I never saw any journalist who actually covered 1998 being brought back into the newsroom to be, being brought back on air or writing a commentary or writing anything to compare. So this is what happens. And the institutional memory is what the Kenyan media tends to lack. We tend to do things very fast because we want to get it out of the way.
In addition to institutional memory, there is, there's a basic lack of curiosity, of asking, I'll give the example of the story you just ran on the on this Busia,
the lovely couple,
whatever. Why is that national news? It's
that's
a nice piece of voyeurism. But why is it national news? And if we are actually going to be putting it forward as a story about the issues regarding interracial marriages or interethnic marriages and stuff, then let's have that story. It seems we are so content with just doing superficial stuff, and that's where it ends. We report Westgate happened and it ends there. Peketoni happens and it ends there. Where is the fundamental curiosity that goes, okay, we are being
from Peketoni, I'll defend. I think Sunday Standard followed it up quite well, and actually we broke it down. From Peketoni, we broke it down completely.
We've not had this. You tell me where we have this kind of stuff.
No, this one has happened. No, this one has happened
in your village, whether there's an Indian.
No.
Yeah, just because an Indian turns up in my village doesn't make that sense.
No.
Gentlemen.
It doesn't happen anywhere. Honestly, don't just be critical for the sake of it.
You see, this is what I'm talking. This is what I meant by institutional memory. This kind of a story has happened before. It happened actually here in Nairobi, and I remember writing a story about
Nairobi.
it. Yeah, when
and writing a story.
Yeah, when at some point. When the Kenyan media went castigating the old man who was very mad because his daughter got married to somebody else. And actually I defended that old man because what we did not understand is that an Indian man, an Indian father lives for the day that his daughter will have a wedding. After that he's ready to die. And here we were castigating that guy, but we did not understand the issues.
And an African man does not live on a day that you see that
what you were denying this guy when you were castigating him for actually, because that's their culture. They have they do most of the time they do arranged marriages. So what was happening is that we never gave this guy a chance. This was the pain of a father. But what did the media do? The media went on castigating him. And I tried to draw parallels and actually told guys like, I think we are wrong castigating this old man. You see? So we cannot just call everything love and all that, and you don't you don't give the parent a chance to vent.
Well,
you see. Anyway,
but these are two consenting elders.
No, so I'm telling you, so such a thing
Yes,
has
but that's
happened.
not what the story is about. The story is about.
What is the story about?
This is, I mean, to be quite honest, it is a piece of fluff. It is.
It is not.
Yes, I have. It is actually what is it called? A piece of voyeurism. You know, we are happy or
but journalism
curious
it's
all about an Indian that stand up in Busia and is living with this guy. And that becomes news. But I'm asking, what is it about these two living together that makes it news?
Have you read the story that I'm asking?
Oh, yes,
for sure.
I have actually.
Tell me what it is all about.
That's what I'm telling you. It is just a fluff.
No, you haven't read. You don't have even the details of the story. You're looking at it on the face value. And I tell you what it's all about. I won't tell you read it because you're criticizing it. Come on.
I do. I read it. I watched it yesterday. I watched it again.
As it is, I'll defend this story. This is a human interest story. But I think now what we need to do,
of course, it's about humans.
Yeah, it's a human interest story. Not everything has to be politics. But I think what probably we need to do is probably go ahead and look at these racial relationships in this country and how far back they've gone. You know, instead of, I mean, this is one thing actually that even shows how split as a community or as a society we are.
Well, that's a story, then discuss that story.
Yes, just a minute, because this is a case of, we are calling it an Asian, as you guys are calling it derogatorily, a Mwindi. No, that's a Kenyan, you see?
Yeah.
That's a Kenyan.
Yeah, sorry,
and it just boils down to the way sometimes, probably, if James Matia would probably decide to marry somebody from a different tribe, then such a thing, I think
why would that be new?
That's how we need to look at it, because it talks about us as a people. We still have this problem 50 years after independence, where we still have this problem of interracial marriages or intertribal marriages, because it happens. So I think that's how that's where we need to take it. But at the first point, we have to report it.
Exactly. So what your argument, and where we'd agree with you to the extent of there should
2 weeks later, if we don't follow up this story,
analysis.
then I think you'd be right to castigate the media. I know.
This is not the end,
we have I know the media.
You want us to analyze something we have not done
shortcomings.
Skuma, boga, beans, maize.
The example you gave, you know, if James goes and marries some Kikuyu guy.
James is Kikuyu.
Some low guy in that case.
Okay.
You know, whatever. That in itself is not a news story. Why is it news?
That in itself is not news. But if James
But that's why we're saying that if he marries
mad about
a person of Asian descent, suddenly it becomes news?
No. The news here is this. The news here is this. The father of one of the parents is not happy with that. So that is where we are starting from.
And she says, if you listen to the story, the upsound, she said, it is not because this man is poor that they're against the union. It's because of the color of his skin. So that talks about issues that need to be discussed. So you want us to also have analysis in that story, but that's what we are saying. That's the first story.
Let's not be satisfied with fluff.
First we have to report it. Actually, I think right now we are bringing fluff.
Read the story. Not read the story. All that we are telling you is here.
Which is why you follow up.
No, it is here.
I think this is where it starts. It starts with a spark. There's some stories actually which start as a brief, you know. There's some stories which start as a brief, and then it goes into something big, you see. And I'm telling you this, I mean, from the experience of being in the newsroom and all that. Sometimes, as somebody who actually, I do a lot of features, is that you can get a big story out of a brief or out of even the classified. I remember this gentleman who apologized to his wife in the newspaper. It was just an advert, a very small one. And it became a big thing. People talked about it. Radio stations, our tabloid radio stations talked about it, and it was covered almost everywhere. So it starts with a spark. So 1 week later, 2 weeks later, if we report this thing the same way, then definitely you have a right to complain. But I think it should be taken forward, and then we have to examine race relations in this country and all these things about also intertribal marriages and all this, the whole spectrum of marriage as we don't know it.
All right, let's see how it goes. Actually, and on that level, we should be asking Martin about his follow-up to the bridge thing.
That is coming. We haven't been asked. Relax.
You're sounding more like a politician. I'm afraid, you know, that you might have to take a break from the show. Physically take pictures from location.
We give him one show him this is what is happening.
But gentlemen, as we wind up this part of that discussion, in the future, journalism world over is going to be, people are going to pay for commentary and analysis, not for breaking news, because eventually we can't own the breaking news market. This is not what it was.
I mean, you've already lost it.
Yes, 20 years ago, or 15 or 10 years ago. But today, still the biggest claim of journalism today in this country is that we got the breaking news, not that we have the best commentary or analysis or context for this story.
It keeps changing. No, news is dynamic. You can't, and the kind of media outlets that we have, and the social media also has revolutionized the way news breaks out. Because before you know it, before we would only depend on maybe what is going to be reported in the paper, on the TV or radio. But now something happens now, whether it's in the US or in China or whatever, we'll know it in a second because it will be all over the social media. So what will just happen the next day for the print and electronic, it will just to analyze and maybe go deeper. But in terms of that breaking of that news, with the revolution of the media industry, that has become really complicated.
Yeah. And even the bulletins have changed. We have more and more in terms of what is a big story in a bulletin. You have it followed up sometimes with an interview. So like, you know, in the days gone.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen, I mean, there has been a change with getting guys into the studio to and explain. But again, I start by saying, it's not that you're losing the breaking news market, you've lost it. You know, there's no way you're going to compete with Twitter or Facebook in breaking news. You know, by the time you get on air, they've already said what is going on. That is the dog bites man or man bites dog scenario. You know, where the press can add value is in contextualizing this, and that's why I am quite insistent on giving the analysis, on giving the facts that lie behind it, you know, because if we stick only on the "this is what happened" track, you know, you become irrelevant. I'll give an example. I was at the Global Media Forum about 4 weeks ago. And the head of the Australian Broadcasting, not the head, or somebody from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation, was saying one of the biggest online stories was when Michael Jackson died. And they're saying, well, they are not traditionally a place where people go to for entertainment news. But what happened is when people heard that Michael Jackson had died, they had it on Twitter. And they were looking for a credible organization to actually tell them that this is true. It's not just a rumor. You know, and this is the value of having a mainstream press, is you guys can go deeper, can actually be the credible voice. But when we act, when our press acts as if it is the social media, you know, where all it has is the surface thing, it reports the rumor, you know, but know what's behind it. Whether it's true, you know, what's the context, what are the issues that are being explored here, then you become fairly much or pretty much relevant. You know, that's my view.
I think, okay, as Martin says, news is dynamic and stuff like that. But sometimes, you see, news, something happens to be news, or it gets reported just probably because a journalist happened to be there. And most of the time, it's not what you say. It is actually how you say it. It's how you twist that story, how you report that story. So for me, still, this idea, I've been hearing this for the past 15 years. News is dying. Newspapers are dying. I mean, I've been hearing this for a very long time. And I started hearing this actually when I was in high school. I started hearing this. We are going paperless office, paperless countries, and all that. So all these things, and we are still. These companies are still building new printing presses. If newspapers are dying, why are they building all these things? You see, so it's not really. I do admit that yes, we need to analyze, but at the same time, we actually need to report fast, because look at this country. How many people, what percentage of the populace or what percentage of the news consumers are actually on social media. Yeah, because radio stations are still opening up, and the people actually, they have listeners. So we cannot actually just give a blanket view and say, okay, fine, news now has to, newspapers or the way we report news we have to stop it because everything breaks on social media. That's a very elitist kind of thinking, because for most Kenyans, Kenya is Nairobi. You see, have you ever asked ourselves, like, what percentage of the Kenyan populace is on social media? And we keep on saying this, and that's why sometimes I disagree with the media when the government says we are going to start doing this on social media, or now we've reached so many people because they are on social media. But how many people in Kenya actually have access? The people in this country who don't have access to a single meal in a day. How is this person going to spend 20 bob buying credits to go on social media, to go on the internet and surf what the government has said, or how many accounts the government has opened for every event, you know, Twitter accounts as it's being done. So no, what I'm saying is, yes, we need to analyze, we need to break it down for the people, but at the same time, we don't have to stop doing the news as it is. Personally, I've spent most of my time getting paid for writing, you see. So, and one thing I discovered very many years ago is that news does not pay as much as I want to be paid, if you get what I mean. So I never used to do news per se. I used to get the news and probably do features afterwards, because news dies very fast. You see, it's got a short shelf life. So that one I understand. But now it is after that, what we do after that will keep people glued. But we still have to report it. We cannot say that the social media has taken over. Again,
I'm not saying don't report it. You know, what I'm saying is, what is the value that you add to it? And when you talk of elitist press, I mean, this cuts across the board. It's not just that social media is elitist. I mean, how many papers do you sell? On a good day, what, 200, 300,000 papers? You know, in a population of 40 million? You know, our press is elitist by definition. I'm not
most
of the guys who will buy your papers.
What I'm saying.
Most of the guys who buy your papers.
I admit this is a blanket. This is a blanket thing. I'm saying, like, we tend to think that Nairobi is Kenya. You know, we tend to think that. That's why when something happens in Nairobi, we tend to report more of it than when something happens probably in Mandera.
All right, let's move on to a case that's beginning or resuming today, beginning at a different court, Supreme Court, to hear the digital TV case. A lot of Kenyans still left in, you know, not understanding, not knowing. I was talking to two older ladies, and they say they have they're in this network, but they're unable to access all other local channels except one. I don't know if you've experienced or have heard of this.
No, we live in Nairobi, we don't experience such things.
No, it's actually Nairobi. So in covering this story, which we are very much at the heart of it, have we been objective, Martin?
Well, the problem is when it is in court, we are limited, because you can't discuss merit or demerits of the case, because it's in court. Otherwise, you'll be, Mutunga and his team will shepherd you to jail. So it's actually against the law to discuss all the merits and demerits of that case. But I think once it's out of the court, we can be able to analyze all that. But I think I had a privilege of reporting it up to the time that it went to the Court of Appeal, and the Court of Appeal gave the media owners a relief, and they were to sit down and discuss with the minister at that point, and I think the minister didn't care, and now they appealed and they're back to the Supreme Court. So I don't think we can go beyond that. Otherwise, it will be contempt of court. That's my worry.
I think what Sophia asked is, like, the reportage, how have we covered it?
Have we been objective, or have we been...
I've not been following it much, because personally, I have to admit, I did not understand much of it. So I did not follow it much. But Gadara seems to know a lot about the media.
Well, I mean, I'll be honest, I haven't followed this one much. I'm assuming you're talking about the digital thing, digital migration thing. You know, as I said before, I don't think the fact that it's in court is itself the reason why it's not being explored. I don't think that should be a damper to us actually exploring what are the issues about it. You know, we don't have to discuss the court case itself.
Yeah, the merits have been merits.
You know, but there are specific issues, there are reasons why, for example, the media owners wanted this delay in moving across to digital. There are reasons or issues to do with who distributes local content. You know, and the people that the government was contracting, I think there were 3 Chinese companies or something.
All that is subject to this case.
Yeah, but I'm saying the issue isn't this thing of 3 guys distributing, is what is the wider story? How does local content actually get distributed? What would be the models that are there? What are the options? You know, there are issues that are underlying this that I would be quite happy, and when Clay says I'm sitting here and I really don't know much about it, you know, it is a pointer. And I would want people looking at that case to be understanding what the issues surrounding it are. You know, if we said, I mean, there's 1,000 court cases going on in Kenya, you know, 1 million of them. You know, they cover pretty much almost everything you might want to report on, you know. But we don't stop, that shouldn't stop us saying, actually, let's not discuss the court case itself, which I would agree, there's a sub judice rule there, you know, but the issues that this case deal with, I think
because before it became a court case, actually, it was out of court. I tend to agree with you there. And when I say that I don't understand much of it, actually, I'm just trying to tell you that, I mean, as a journalist, not that I know everything, not that I know everything, you know, the way you always want the media to say that we know everything. And actually, also that could point that, actually, I am admitting that I know our shortcomings and that I know our strength. You see, and this is actually something that it says a lot about our newsrooms, is that we do not have, can I call them specialist journalists or something like that? We most of our newsrooms, we don't have somebody who actually, his job is just to cover the media. We don't have that. Because if at all we had that, then it could have been very, very easy for this case to have been broken down.
But how often does the media make news, Claire?
Oh, but the media itself, how often does the media make news? You are the media, you make the news. You
no, you said there should be reporters. Others make the news.
By making the news, not being newsmakers. But there's a lot that happens in the media. There's a lot of issues that actually need to be covered on the media. A lot of them. Like, okay, one thing I want to say now, right?
Story that
not necessarily a big story. There's so many things we have. The Media Owners Association, we have the Media Council of Kenya, we have the Kenya Union of Journalists, we have Kenya Correspondents Association, all these guys, the policy issues actually that need to be covered. And I think that was also that what makes us not such a very strong media, because we don't have people who cover the media. There are people who have made a living from covering the media. Yeah, in other countries, the people who've made a living from covering I think there's a guy who's been hired by CNN now, he's called Brian Stelter. Brian Stelter was covering the media, I think, for New York Times. Now he's moved to CNN. That is what he does, covering the media. There's so much that is happening in the media that actually need covering. But even that, we need people actually who would specialize in that. The same way we have somebody who specializes in politics, senior political reporter. Or do you have senior, we have court reporters, you see. But we don't fill the paper with court stories every day. You can have, I mean, it won't cost anything much if actually this thing was ever broken down for ignorant people like me. You know,
but would it be of great interest, public interest, to just talk about what is happening in the media vis-a-vis the kind of all stuff we have already in this country to deal with? I guess we have more.
Unless you're saying media is not important.
No, I'm not saying that. We are important. That's why.
No. James will be the media reporter.
Our business is informing the public and educating the public and ensuring that they get the proper information and stuff that is happening within the country. So if we turn the spotlight on ourselves, I think my view
and I think we do a very good job of that when our issues are under threat, you know.
Only we do a good job of reporting it.
Yeah,
we never break it down, because I don't think there's anything wrong with having somebody in the newsroom actually who specializes in media issues. Because all of us here, we studied media ethics, we studied media law, all of us. Yeah, I want to believe that we did that. But we see, we have...
It's another assumption.
Believe is an important thing.
Believe, I did not say trust.
It's a big assumption.
That's why I said believe, I never said trust.
Yeah.
But you see, the very many issues with the media actually, and this, the fact that we are having this actually program called the Newsroom, it's actually we are discussing the media.
Which has inspired others to
we are
follow.
discussing. We are actually discussing the media, and I don't think there's anything wrong, because I come from a background where actually the media was very strong. That actually whatever happens in the media, when we have people, when the media starts covering issues that happen within themselves, it does not make them weaker. It does not expose them to the public. It actually makes them stronger. And that's one of the reasons why we don't have a strong media here. Nobody has ever questioned that Kenyan journalists don't have a professional body. We have a union of journalists which is affiliated to a trade union. Right now, as we speak, if by some stroke of good luck, Kenya Union of Journalists, Media Council of Kenya are actually struck off the rolls, how is it going to affect you? Nothing. It won't affect you. You see, so we have issues here which actually, we have some of these things that nobody questions their existence. What are they there for? How do they help the journalists? How do they help
I actually side with Clay, because this is the point. Today, the cost of printing or broadcasting the truth is subject of parliament or criminal proceedings at any given point.
Right.
That is the media law that we have. That doesn't seem to be something that the public would know and is aware about. Until Martin writes something, then he's taken to court, and then for the cost of
then we go to the streets.
If you're not articulating this, you know, if the press is not out there discussing these issues, if we sit back and wait till the day that Martin is actually held in front of a court, and then it's too late. My point is, we need to be, the press needs to be introspective, you know, as Clay is saying, needs to be looking at itself, but not just in the narrow sense of let's cover what James said today, you know, but in the wider sense of explaining what the context within which the press works is, you know, what are its limitations? You know, what are its challenges? Where does it fail? Where does it do well? You know, and why does this thing happen? How can we help? You know, how can we change things? What needs changing? Those are the sort of questions that I want to see articulated. You know, when you look at things like the media bill that passed the other day, you know, that the president signed. I mean, it's now dropped off as if it is no longer law, but it is there. You know, and it is still as bad as when we were complaining about it a year ago. You know, so we need to be articulating this thing, constantly bringing them up and saying, well, this is what needs changing. You know, when we look at issues like the training of journalists, which you hinted at over here, if there are issues there, let us ventilate them, bring them out. What is the problem? There's a lot of NGOs around that are dedicated to look into these issues. You know, those are the guys. Give them the space. You know, over here, just as you were saying. I mean, we've never had a blackout over a rally or a demonstration by journalists. You're the first guys to cover yourselves. You know, but cover the other guys who are actually covering you, who are looking at you, who are
actually for me, when the journalists took to the streets and the Kenyan media took to the streets, I found that to be a very defeatist attitude. I found that to be a very defeatist attitude, and it's something that I would not have actually done. I did not go for it, because when you get to the point that you're running to the streets, you have all this, I mean, strong whatever's that you have the media, you are the journalist, you're so strong that actually people should listen to you, the government should listen to you, you should set the agenda. But that's one thing we don't know. There are very many issues with journalism, with the media, that we have failed to understand. We have deliberately refused to understand. One thing is that we don't understand is that when you increase the cost of newsprint, that actually is an aspect of clamping down on the media. You see, because why? I mean, we just increased the cost of newspapers. Nobody complained about it. No journalist talked about it. It was just increased, and then the cost. We are the same people who complain like, oh, we are fighting for the people. These are the same people who buy our newspapers. We never complained about that.
Claire, suggest an association where you're chairman. Yes.
You suggest what? No, I don't need to. I just need to articulate these things, because one more thing, and that's why I have deliberately refused to become a member of some body called Kenya Union of Journalists. I don't want to be a member of a trade union. I don't want to be, because there's no professional body. Kenyan media don't have a professional body. We don't even have a media center or a press center where we can actually sit and talk as reporters or as journalists and discuss something.
Clear, I mean, look at the positive. We have Newsroom, we have a show, you know, just a
What you're doing is admitting failure on your part.
I have not refused. And that exactly, I have not refused. And you see, this is why I keep on saying this, that one more thing, every time I talk about the media and people ask me questions, I say like, I do this because I understand our weaknesses and our strengths. And I want to talk about it when I am inside. I don't want to go out there, then they'll say like, he's out throwing stones in. I want to throw stones when I'm actually in.
Throw stones, throw stones and then gather them and build a home.
And raise these issues, because as long as we don't raise them, they've been happening over the years.
Yep.
We have people actually who 5, 6, 7 years ago, these things were happening. Now they've left, they've retired into something called consultancy. You know, which I've never understood what it is all about.
But let's move on to another subject, another issue here. And a story on Standard Up, the IC judges back prosecutors fight for court to get Uhuru's full wealth list.
Oh,
someone did a blog about 2 weeks ago, and supposing this story was different, supposing the IC judges had blocked prosecutor, this would have been a top story on all the newspapers. But it's the other way, it is just another story. Someone did a full list on how the media has reported ICC. And we've always reported ICC when it is a failure of the prosecutor, it's a big story, it's a headline. But when it's actually going on as it should, it's not a big story.
Yeah, I mean, and this you really should look at a lot of work that's being done in engaging coverage of the press. It's lots of papers that have been done, especially on these ICC issues, you know. And one of the guys is called Nicholas Benquist or something. He did a very interesting article or paper on how the press covers this from the point of view of the politics of ICC, not of the case itself. You know, so we don't discuss these are the Bensouda's strong points. This is the evidence she's presenting. What we are discussing is the impact it has on Kenyan politics. So that's why we are always, when is it Uhuru has taken a hit? Is it Ruto has taken a hit, and what is the implication down here? You know, so I think a lot of it is driven by a traditional thing within the press that they do not articulate issues. What they do
the president and
report.
deputy president Gadara, he cannot talk about those issues without the implication of whatever is happening.
No, I'm not saying you don't, but if that's the focus of your issue, you end up with a situation where that James has described. You know, where if the prosecutor has a win, you know, but well, what will happen over here? Not too much. We ignore it, you know. But you know, we're always hyping up what the politicians want us to hype up, and it goes to get back to what you're saying before, which is we have absconded our role as the people who set the agenda. You know, we wait for the politicians to tell us what the stories are, what's the big deal, what's the big issue, and we run with that.
But this is an ICC case. It hasn't, for Uhuru, it hasn't even started.
Well, it has
not started.
Yeah, you're right.
So I don't know what you want us to analyze before it starts. First, whatever happens, if the prosecutor puts up an issue, we report it like we've done today. And I think we've given it as much prominence by the fact that we've even flagged it up there. It shows that it's an issue that we've not ignored. I've not seen it anywhere in any other paper.
Martin, and that's the point. That's the point I want to pick up, that, you know, not that it's on the paper, that the fact that if today, or the IC judges that yesterday had said, you know what, the Bensouda has no case and has no point, this would have been a big story, headline. What is the difference now that it's not? It's the other way around.
The difference why it's not is because if the case is thrown out, it means we have a president and a deputy president who are charged on international crimes, and this is something that is hanging over their heads. If that is removed out of them, it has serious implications in terms of political situation in the country.
It is fine, Martin, hang on. But it's fine.
Then, on the flip side,
the fact that it remains,
yes.
Are you saying the fact that the case continues, it's nothing that hangs over the head?
Now I'm going on the other side as well. When the prosecutor also has built a case and shows that for sure is headed to something with regard to the two gentlemen, it's also a big story. We can't pretend to ignore that because it will also have serious implications in terms of having our presidents and deputy going to The Hague for a case. It's both ways. It's serious matter. You can't pretend to.
Why hasn't the disappearing and pulling out of witnesses been a huge story?
Because they've
Imagine.
We can't find them to tell us them.
You know, let me ask you. The Constitution says clearly, Section 143, subsection 4, that the president can be prosecuted pursuant to a treaty we have signed, which the ICC we have. You know, why is it not a big story that our guys are going to the AU, are going to the UN, when they were doing it last year, to get this case stopped, saying that actually presidents should not be prosecuted? You know, our constitution allows it. You know, we spend public resources.
Before you continue, I want to excuse myself. For me, the only ICC I would love to talk about is international cricket. So I'll leave that to the gentleman.
Seriously. The coverage of the ICC has really been skewed. In my view, it has really not been about the issues that are presented and the issues that are raised. It has been very much about the politics that surrounds it and the fact that our media was kind of sucked into the whole Jubilee choir
That's
thing.
not true.
You know,
Gadara, you
I think
don't.
they beat the drum very much.
You're suffering from some amnesia.
Listen,
listen. When the issue of I can state it because I've been following and covering this thing. When the AU took up this issue, it used to be the front page of the Standard.
True.
It was there. I'm wondering what you're talking about.
Wait. What was on the front page of the Standard?
The issue of ICC. We're talking about the issue of the ICC.
Did we discuss the fact that what they were doing was contrary to what our constitution said?
We reported in terms of.
I know.
Listen,
why is it that the AU, one of the guys who voted in the AU, came up and said, actually, if I had known that the Kenyan constitution says this, I wouldn't have voted it. It was reported. You know, my point is this: is the issues underlying it. When our guy, what's his name, Masharia in the UN, goes and says something like the IDPs actually came out ahead because they used to be landless guys and now they are being resettled. So actually, 2007 wasn't too bad for them. It's ignored. It is totally ignored, yet he said it
differently.
Come on. How we report it, and this is my point, how we report things, how our press reports
How would you have it done differently?
How would I have it done differently? Yes. I would be discussing what the issues are. For example, when we've got the witnesses disappearing, we had one story, I think, in the Nation about it that talked of a cartel of guys who are going around intimidating witnesses. Then it was allowed to die away. What is reported today is how Bensouda's case is collapsing. Not how witnesses are being intimidated. Witnesses who our government commits to protect. That's not an issue that the press is interested in.
That's not true. That's not true. Because let me tell you, Gadara, if there's a whole witness protection law we have, and in the event that any witness is intimidated, that is criminal.
Right.
And that would even fall squarely within the Kenyan government. Show me the ones who are being intimidated.
Actually,
if they're there,
let's do this. I'll be here next week. I come with the story. I'll bring you the story that the Nation started. It's not hard to find. And the fact is, the fact it doesn't happen anywhere else in any other cases. In fact, Bensouda says this is unprecedented.
Don't come with it next week. Post it on Twitter. Post it on Twitter.
Yeah, if we want to discuss how the thing, this has been looked into. How the press has covered the ICC, and to be quite honest, it hasn't been atrocious.
I would look at it.
It's the same thing.
Martin, hang on. Can we generally, before getting to we reported or not, can we say that we've reported ICC the way we should have reported it?
I believe, to the best of my ability and knowledge, we've reported ICC very well. I can speak for the Standard.
Where are victims on this story?
The victims, in terms of they also have their lawyers, and when an issue arises, their lawyers come out and talk about it. And we report it. We cannot go fishing for, we are not the ones trying the case. The media is not the one trying the case. The case is being tried elsewhere.
The reporting of the press ends at the victim's lawyer said this.
No,
Kenyatta
because
said
listen.
Because the judge said this. Come on, man.
Listen, there has to be facts. You know, this is international law. It's not this kangaroo court we are having. It is an issue that you have to follow in terms of how you you have to deal with issues the way it is like just the same cases that are happening in our court.
Martin.
You don't prosecute a case that is in court when there are people who are there to prosecute it are the ones supposed to do it. We cannot go as a media like right now, like for a case that is before a judge here, and start looking for the witnesses of that case to try and start dealing the issues.
If the witnesses start disappearing, if they start dropping off like flies, then you really should go and
disappear. And it is said, we said, you remember we followed that case.
And you follow it and you ask, why are they disappearing?
Because we can't follow them. They've disappeared, we don't have them.
We wouldn't know who the witnesses are. Why would we follow a witness we don't know?
In as much as for me, I've always said that the only ICC I would talk about is the International Cricket Council. I would like to look at this differently. It's not about like how we've covered it and whether it's been good or bad and all that, but the shortcomings that I've actually probably that we've encountered, or the way if Gadara feels that maybe it was not covered well, it says a lot about also, it goes back to one thing, how well are we prepared for this? Because for me, what happens is like when Mr. Ruto and Mr. Kenyatta were going to The Hague, we were not sending people there who probably understand international law or who understand law or who understand these things, but we are sending people there, people who have covered Mr. Kenyatta for a long time, or people who have covered Mr. Ruto for a long time. So those are the people who are going there to cover them for us. So we never had to, if at all, it's never been covered well, then it's because of those shortcomings. So we never had people to break it down.
But also in terms of the witnesses.
I don't understand.
In terms of the witnesses.
Breaking down. Don't hide under this issue of breaking it down. There's nothing like breaking it down.
I'm trying to explain.
You're wrong. No. I'll speak to the standard. We send people who cover court, who understand law, are the people we send to The Hague. We should have evidence when we speak about issues and facts. Like in the standard, we send people who cover courts, and they went and covered the issue. They've been covering it the way it's supposed to be done. And we've been verifying from here. We don't send riffraffs just to do anything. This is a serious matter. It's a matter that is affecting all of us. This country, ourselves, you and me. And the impact of that case is going to resonate with all of us. So when we speak about issues, let's have facts. Let's not just speak about things we don't know.
But on the question on witnesses, what you were talking about, it was one of those, very careful to tread territory because of what the judges had said, in as far as what we saw unfolding on social media, the information being put out on the witnesses. So also in covering that, was the media more interested in just making and satisfying the curiosity of who is that hidden witness, against the story of where people are actually disappearing or dropping off cases?
Yeah, that's my whole point. Martin says, I speak with evidence. I would really love it if we had a show where we actually looked at this particular issue, and we could come, because there has been quite a lot of studies and papers written about Kenyan media's coverage of the case. The same way Kenyan media's coverage of the election, Kenyan media's coverage of Westgate. There have been fundamental failures within the coverage of these things, in terms of articulating what the issues are, when we started, I spoke of Westgate, and you think about what we know of Westgate, how many guys were actually in there? How many guys were found? You look at the body count, look at what the parliamentary committee said. They found 3 bodies, 2 of which they knew were military, yet we report every time when they say nobody escaped. All the bodies were found.
Now you're losing me. We are from ICC, now we're back to
I'm giving you an example. Let me finish. The reason why I'm saying this is that there are systemic failures. You can't just look at reporting in Westgate by itself and then look at reporting in the election by itself. and then at ICC by itself. There are systemic failures that go across, and you've got to understand, when you say let's look at how the press works, let's turn the spotlight on them, then it's the only way we can understand what those failures are and then begin to address them. Otherwise, if we try and just quantify things we'll just see a failure here, failure there, failure there, but we won't resolve it because we're not seeing what underlies all of this.
All right, gentlemen, we need to finish. Finally, flight MH17 goes down in the border between Ukraine and Russia. Today, you can point out Donetsk is in the map. Today, it's impossible for you to point out where Boni Forest is.
I think I want to say something before we wind up. Mr. Mutua, I don't think you're making the media strong. You're making it weak by actually admitting when we point out to our failures. We should stop living in denial. Where we have gone wrong, we have to admit.
And as you said that, the comment here from Senator Hassan Omar, he says, Kenyan media totally embedded by the Jubilee regime. Martin Mutua losing it.
I would not say that. I would not say that Martin is losing it. But I think what I would say is that sometimes it's good to admit. We should stop living in denial.
I always admit when we have inconsistencies.
Sometimes we have to admit. But actually what has been happening is the number of people that we've sent who have gone from Kenya, the Kenyan media who have gone to cover this case. Not all of them have that background. You talked about covering courts. Just because you cover court does not make you a lawyer. The people actually in this newsroom who actually have studied journalism, and they're lawyers. I know 2, I know 3. They've never been sent to cover any of these things. So we have to admit that what was happening here is we send people. If you've been covering Mr. Kenyatta for long, then you went to ICC to cover Mr. Kenyatta, the case. If you have covered Mr. Ruto for long, then you went to cover Mr. Ruto. We have to admit this.
Speak for the other media. For the Standard, I'll give you names.
No, I don't refuse. What I'm talking about is generally this is what happened. And we have to admit as media, not as KTN or as Standard or as what. We're not, it's not a matter, it's not a blame game. Just actually admitting where we went wrong and where actually what the flaws that were there and how we can make this thing strong. Because all these things that people write, as Gadara is pointing out, this has been written from this, the way this was covered. I don't think those people are actually wanatuonea. I think they actually have valid reasons why they do this, why they see all these flaws. So perfection is just an aim. We can only aim to be perfect, you see. It's not that it's
and
not.
there needs to be a remedy to what you're saying, Clay.
We need to accept, we need to accept where we've gone wrong and stuff.
Make that your final thoughts, Martin.
Clay, there's no way I would take an entertainment writer to go and cover The Hague. That would not be.
I think there's a time. Okay, fine. I don't know.
I wouldn't do that.
Yeah,
even if you.
Yes,
if I'm the decision-making body, I would not do that. The perfect way to do it is if somebody has been covering has understood the issues of ICC, and a person who has been covering courts, that's the right person you'd send to The Hague to be able to understand issues pertaining to what is happening at the courts. And that's what we've done at the Standard. I'll speak for the Standard. I don't know about the other media. That's what we've done. And the people who have been able to cover courts are much better. They understand the legalese of what happened in there, and it's easier for them to decipher and be able to interpret what the rulings come out from there. So that's what we've done.
You're fair.
But moving forward, I accept. We cannot say we are perfect.
Yeah.
We have failures, which we also, like just any other society, there's nobody is perfect. Even the bloggers, you can't say that they're the ones who are
perfect in the same sentence.
No. Come on. The fact is, and here's the thing, our press needs to introspect, I think, a lot.
That's why we are here. That's what we're doing here.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
This is the introspection happening right now.
I think we need to
and as you
very
said,
much
what happened
look
after that,
at
people took over.
The successes we've had, and I'm not saying that there have been no successes, but also to reflect on the failures that we've done, and more importantly, the reasons, the systemic reasons that underlie these failures. When you got them, essentially coming back to back, we've got to be going back and asking. What you asked about the fact that people know where Donetsk is and they can't tell where Boni Forest is. speaks to how we cover these issues. You know, when KDF goes into Boni Forest, and it takes a while for the media to start asking, actually, how come government didn't go to Parliament to ask about this? You know, we've got to ask. Why wasn't that the first thing that we asked? It's not that we don't know what the law is. You know, when you know, there was a nice thing that was put out. Was it last week about the disappearing clerics in Mombasa? You know, 21 and something of them. You know, I know the Standard did something on it, or the KTN that did something on it. You know, so a while back. But these are issues that need to be constantly discussed, constantly ventilated upon. You know, how do they tie into the radicalization that's happening at the coast? You know, KDF being caught selling charcoal in Kismayu. You know, charcoal that then benefits Al-Shabaab, and then they tell us they're fighting Al-Shabaab and they're serious about insecurity. You know, where are the people who are raising these issues, who are constantly saying, actually what they're telling us might not be true, but actually be a cover? One final point. In Garissa the other day, they said they arrested 2 guys who are linked to Westgate and to whatever, to Mpeketoni attacks. Westgate we knew was Al-Shabaab. You know. So where is this whole story of local political networks? How come nobody is asking the president, well, you stood up on a podium and said, these were local guys who were attacking us. This was politics, it was not Al-Shabaab. That's what he said. Where's our media asking him, boss?
You don't kick a man. You don't kick a man when he's down. I think I'll agree with Martin. I think the story of the political networks and Peketoni, it has been said in so many ways that actually you are wrong. You know, in so many ways that you are wrong,
including here the very first
yeah. So we don't kick a man when he's down. Give him a chance to stand up, including the National Intelligence Services itself actually said and actually gave the ethnicity of the person leading the attacks. You see, that is exactly how it was in the report. So, I mean, I think they've gotten the idea that actually, yes, we are wrong. Maybe they've just not come out and say, okay, fine, we are sorry and all that. But I think that
the whole point
you have to admit,
we should be extracting a price. If a president can get up there and politicize,
the price is, no, they've eaten humble pie.
If your Olelenku can get up there and politicize security, means he's not doing his job, he's looking at the politics
now,
of things.
when the media does not talk about Olelenku anymore, it's because you've given up on him, you know, you've given up on him.
He does not make remember when you said that the president should leave State House a while back? Those are the things we need to be talking about, you know, where's he parking his bag?
All right. Patrick Gadara, Martin Mutua, and Mr. Clay Muganda himself.
Yeah,
and actually somebody has said
issues
you're
like
going,
the Hague, eh?
Yeah, somebody tweeted, I don't know if I can find that tweet about Clay.
And he's proving to be a good trade unionist.
Yes.
Popular belief.
Somebody is not in a union.
Yeah, who's not in a union.
Yeah, and creating job opportunities as well.
All right, gentlemen, as I've always said, doctors bury their mistakes, lawyers jail their mistakes, journalists we print and broadcast our mistakes. You're watching Morning Express. Don't go too far.
Don't go too far indeed. Stay with us.